Hey, hey, hey. Happy Wednesday. Come on in. Pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch. Brought to you by, shockingly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. In fact, as of Monday, we entered into our 16th year covering the hobby. I know, crazy. It was our 15th anniversary on Monday of us publicly launching the Gaming Gang. We had actually posted articles for about a month on the website without telling people we existed. So kind of wild. Didn't think I'd be around this long doing this, but hey, I'm having fun. So we just keep rocking and rolling. So welcome aboard, everybody. Tonight is Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025. This is live show 1231. If you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out it's super casual around here. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming, mainly with the focus on role-playing games, which is what we'll be doing tonight. But on occasion, I'll do an unboxing of a board game, or maybe I'll just tackle a topic related to our hobby. And every blue moon, I just share tabletop gaming news and then just chew the fat with chat. But tonight, we're actually going to dive on into the Paizo preview for September 2025. There are 5 items, physical items, which are arriving from Paizo Inc. In fact, they should have hit stores today. We're going to dive in and take a peek. So there will not be a tabletop gaming news section this evening. I know, very rarely do we ever do that, but we got a lot of stuff to take a look at. So I think we're going to easily fill at least an hour without the tabletop gaming news. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. And then, of course, because this is a live show, there is chat available. Now, you do have to be a subscriber to the channel for at least an hour before you can take part. But if you have been a subscriber for at least 60 minutes and you want to say howdy, maybe you've got a question, a comment, by all means, send me a chat. Type away. I will do my very best to answer. Some things just zip by. Sometimes we're rocking and rolling and got a lot of folks in chat, so I miss things. But I do my best to at least say hello to everybody who pops on in. First out the gate tonight is Semper Buffo. Sean O'Donnell's with us, as is Wallona's Cave, W Forge, Chris Lundgren, and the Madman. Yes, one of our chat moderators, good friend of the show. Spelling Mistake is also popping on in. And I would not be surprised if the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D is lurking in the shadows as another of our chat moderators, she of the glittery banhammer. Kabong! Now hold on there a minute, Baba Louie. I'll do the thinning around here. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't think that's a deep cut. Is that really a deep cut? Is it a Hanna-Barbera deep cut? I don't think so. I think most of you, at least the age group that is watching this stream normally, I think most of you are going to catch it. Yes. Nice. So we're going to get into the Paizo preview in just a few moments. Did want to mention, I did take my mom to the eye doctor today to have the injections that putting in her eye. Good thing I'm not doing a tabletop gaming news section tonight. That's all I got to say, because I got back home. Now I left here. It was 10:30 this morning. I got back here at just after 5:30. And usually it's around 6 p.m. Central Time that I pop on down into the Duct Tape Studios to get everything prepped and ready for that evening stream. So I would have had no time to get news together. Although I do have some news pieces I am aware of that we're going to talk about on tomorrow's show. Yes, Sarah D is lurking indeed. W. Ford says Cobalt Press sent an email out with a link to my video where I reviewed the Labyrinth World book. Very cool. Nice. I always like when companies, share the love a little bit. I'll tell you one company that doesn't. We're talking about them tonight. All they do on social media is just like my stuff. They never repost. They don't repost for hardly anyone. There's only one content creator that I know of that on occasion they'll actually repost. Yeah, it's just their way. What can I tell you? Somebody just said they like the shirt. There you go. Wallona's Cave. So yes, this is a Pathfinder t-shirt. This is actually from Misty Mountain Gaming. You might recall they were our sponsor last week. Now, they have a new licensed line of Pathfinder and Starfinder apparel and accessories and all these other goodies, dice and so forth. They are in the midst of their launch party. Now, the launch party was supposed to end, I remember right, I think it was tomorrow. They have extended it to September 7th. So it is mistymountaingaming.com. And I thought, hey, this is probably one of the last opportunities I'll be able to come down here into the Duct Tape Studios wearing a t-shirt, although I never do. I think I have done, I did a show last week wearing this t-shirt. And I think I may have done a show 5 years ago. I just, I like t-shirts. I got loads of different cool t-shirts and that. I just wear them bumming around the house. I never go out like in public in just a t-shirt and shorts or whatever. Ars Fabula by Gradacious is with us in chat. Welcome. All right, so might as well dive right on into our Paizo preview. We're going to start off with the Starfinder Flip-Mat Garage Warehouse. That's right, the Garage Warehouse carries an MSRP of $19.99. You can get it in PDF for $9.99. Swinging on over to the other camera. Before we start taking a peek at everything for this month's Paizo preview, should mention the fine folks over at Paizo Inc. were kind enough to provide me with these review copies. So important to keep that in mind. Also important to keep in mind, neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this coverage with you. I think that's kind of important for you to know as well. So let's open this on up. I know you're tired of hearing me talk about, so if you play skirmish level miniatures games, well, it's true. If you play skirmish level miniatures games, these flip mats work very, very nicely. I had somebody comment, I think it might have been on last month's Paizo preview video, saying that they use a lot of these for modern, some of the Starfinder stuff and some of the less fantastical Pathfinder flip mats. So I was like, oh, cool. So taking a peek here, of course, it is 3 panels by 3 panels and double-sided. Of course, this is treated so that you can use wet and dry erase, as well as permanent markers on here, and be able to wipe them all off. Yes, even a permanent marker. My understanding is the trick is you actually write over the permanent marker with a dry or wet erase marker and take it all off. I don't know. I've never put that to the test. That is my understanding. W4 just saying permanent markers erase from the mat. I guess then they're not so permanent. I would definitely never take the chance. I'm with you, W4s. That's why I said I have never put that theory to the test, but supposedly that is the case. And if I remember correctly, I think it was Paizo Inc. that I read an article one time, and they were saying, yes, if you use permanent marker, you can get the permanent marker off. But as W4 points out, that means they're not permanent. Dun, dun. All right, so that is the Starfinder Flip-Mat Garage Warehouse. We also have the Starfinder Player Character Folio. Now, before you start wondering, well, wait a second, how come Starfinder 2nd Edition is getting a Player Character Folio? They don't have that available for Pathfinder. Actually, they did. When 2nd Edition Pathfinder came out, they did have a Player Character Folio. They've just never kept it in print. So let's take a look at the back. Record your glory. Fully detail your hero and record their adventures with the Starfinder Character Folio. This deluxe character record provides space for absolutely everything you need to know about your Starfinder hero. The sturdy folio's 8 character defining pages include, well, we're going to take a look inside. All right, so cardstock, pretty nice. There's a little folder here for you to slip notes and things in. Kind of cool. It's kind of treated as well, so it won't get so beat up. So here we've got the front of the character folio where you could put art, pronouns, favored weapons, key abilities, notes, of course, the character name. Well. Ancestry and general feats, class abilities. If they are a spellcaster, we've got magic tradition here, as well as our spell slots, cantrips, focus spells, innate spells, rituals. Our inventory, items which are stowed away, valuables, augmentations, items, campaign notes, and actions and activities and free actions and reactions. That's kind of interesting. Another little folder here for you to slip things in. I will say I am kind of surprised. Well, I guess they have to share credits. But I would have thought maybe this page would have been some like a cheat sheet for the players, some of the, the basics of the mechanics of Starfinder 2nd Edition. That's what I would have thought. This is pretty nice. This carries an MSRP of $14.99. You can get it in PDF for $9.99. I'm kind of curious, though, as a game master, if I found all my players showed up and they each had one of these, knowing that they had spent $15 on each one. Wouldn't that put pressure on the game master not to kill off the player characters? I know I talk about this kind of stuff all the time where it's like, and I get it. Players get very attached to their player characters. That's fine. That's all good. But if there is no risk, if your players know that their characters can do anything and everything, they could come up with the most idiotic plans and they don't suffer any consequences that are permanent, like a character death. Yeah, I think it takes some tools out of the GM's toolbox. I know. It's a player character folio. You're thinking, Jeff, getting a little too deep into the weeds about this. I'm just saying, if I had, say, 5 players show up to play and they all had these folios and I know they each spent $15 on them, I don't know. Better be filling out in pencil. Chris Lundgren says, looks neat, but I hate to waste all my second edition I bought during the open game license disaster. I'm not sure if Chris was talking about the character folio. W. Ford says they should make the folio out of the same stuff as the player mat so you can erase it. Hey, there you go. That wouldn't be a bad idea. That'd be kind of, I guarantee you could easily, because that's kind of the finish that this has. Ars Fabula has. Doesn't it have a wet, dry erase surface? Nope. This you could. Kind of weird. Kind of wild. But I do like this. I think this is pretty nice. Next up, we are going to take a look at Pathfinder Adventure Path 218. It is Titanbane. This is the conclusion of the Myth Speaker Adventure Path. Sammy has been reviewing this adventure path. She will be reviewing Titanbane as well. Keep in mind, this is going to be the second to last adventure path for Pathfinder. If you missed the news, Paizo Inc. is no longer going to produce monthly adventure path chapters. They are going to go with quarterly hardcovers. And, I said, yeah, I can see that, and I don't mind that. I don't really have an issue with it. There are some gamers out there who are kind of like, oh, really? Come on. I never thought of the fact that international players, those outside the United States, will probably have it far, far easier if it's just a quarterly hardcover than sitting there, continually getting these adventure path chapters every month, because shipping must be insane. J-Man and Stray Kismet are joining us in chat. Welcome. J-Man asks, what happened to characters like Original Traveler all fit onto one side of an index card? Best ever. Yeah, you could pretty much stat out an entire adventure with NPCs and monsters and locations and stuff like that on about 10 index cards. I know from experience. So there you've got that. Chris Lundgren says you can copy the sheet, sleeve it, and use wet erase pens like they did with Starfleet battles. We use grease pencils all the time on the Starfleet battles. What do they call them? Trying to remember. They're like the ship sheets that you would be marking stuff off. Real quick, I know we're kind of getting off topic here, which we do all the time here on the Gaming Gang Dispatch. I recommend, if you're interested in Starfleet battles and you've heard of it and you're like, wow, that sounds really cool, but the complexity that Starfleet battles now has turns you off or scares you away. There is a game, it's called Starfire. That is what became Starfleet battles. And they still produce it. They may only produce it as PDFs for you to download, because they were in the Ziploc bags, but they were bigger Ziploc bags because it came from Task Force Games. And there are 3 volumes of it. It is kind of Starfleet Battles Light, without, obviously enough, the Starfleet Battles background and things like that, but still really, really good game. I wish I actually still had my copies of that game, because I would teach it to my nephew Cameron in a minute. All right, so let's get back into the Paizo preview for September 2025. Let's take a look at the back here. Myth Slayer. Having beaten death, escaped the afterlife, and mastered their mythic abilities, spoilers, the heroes know exactly what threatens the Iblidian's Isles, but defeating it is another matter. They'll seek a divine sword lost on a secretive island, navigate the monstrous city of Deruxalis, thwart their longtime rivals, and wrestle with truly titanic beasts if they're to bury that blade in their enemy's heart. The Myth Speaker Adventure Path concludes with Titanbane, a complete adventure for 7th to 9th level characters. So this has a little bit of a Greek mythology vibe to the proceedings. I don't think it's really very true to those myths. I think they play pretty fast and loose with them, but still. And of course, as I mentioned, Sammy Uhas will have a review in the not too distant future. First thing we'll do is take a peek at the credits page. You know, I'll tell you what, recently, the past few Adventure Path chapters that have come out, the first page and the last page, let's see if the last page, yeah, same thing. Actually, the glue has seeped through, so I can't actually lay this page flat like it should without tearing it. This was the same thing happened last month. All right, so we have got 3 chapters here. In Search of a Blade, Shades of Paul Diraxilis, and A Sleeping Titan Wakes. The Acropolis Pyre, the first adventure in this campaign, includes an article presenting various hero gods who still survive in Iblidios, or however it's pronounced. Given the threat posed to the archipelago, where are these divinities while the PCs do all the work? The short answer is that they're busy managing their own conflicts close to home. Anything from tamping down on upwellings of mythic power to clashing with mutant beasts. But that doesn't have to be the case. So I guess you can sort of introduce those in. Troy Cornelson's joined us tonight. Welcome back, Troy. All I'm going to do is just kind of give you a little plot synopsis of each of the chapters. We'll take a look at the adventure toolbox. The hero gods emerge from the underworld with a specific purpose, but no precise direction. While they've learned that the sword Ericostus can guide them to where Sanga sleeps and that it has the power to slay her if needed, the weapon has been lost for over a decade. Piecing together the clues they discovered during their previous journey won't be an easy task, nor a safe one. All right, so is this going to be the chapter of the adventure where we've got a bunch of just small encounters where the player characters can kind of do what they want, not necessarily extremely linear? That tends to be how the Pathfinder Adventure Paths operate. There's usually one of the 3 chapters is pretty free-flowing, that it's not really on rails like normally the other chapters of the Adventure Paths are. Looks like the first chapter is relatively long. Then we get the Shades of Paul Diraxilis. Sanga's body lies beneath an island home to 2 obliterated city-states. Oh, come on, man. The authors at Paizo Inc. they seemingly go out of their way to create names and places that are nigh impossible to pronounce. It's like, hey, all right, so I wonder what consonants I can just kind of jumble together. Yeah, maybe throw a vowel or 2 in there and then take it from there. Stray Kismet says they demand a toga of Cat's Grace +2. W. Forge had mentioned they remembered Starfire. Yeah, it was a cool game. It was a cool game. If I remember correctly, I think Steve Jackson Games was a little ticked at Task Force Games because the concept of how ships took damage was similar to how cars and Car Wars took damage. So, and then when they did Starfleet Battles, then it was a lot like Car Wars damage. All right. So, well, the PCs have been busy with their journeys to the underworld and Pecalikalos. Like I said, it's like the cult of Senga has not sat idle. Under the leadership of the Seno prophet Teos, the cultists have thrown Duralaxis in a political unrest. I swear, it's every like name and place is like this. You know, I understand this is supposed to have a Greek flavor to it. But even Greece, the people and places you can pronounce. W. Ford says Paizo's next adventure, the tomb of yes. So we have mutated centaurs. Looks pretty weird. The Vengeful Shade. I like that artwork. That's cool. So here it appears that the player characters are sneaking into a temple or something. And then here we've got the final chapter. A sleeping Titan wakes. When a Titan finding weapon in hand and a blessing from a grateful city secured, the hero gods must now face the ancient power behind the mythic. Behind their mythic callings. Sanga, the slumbering Titan of artistry. When Gorum and Gorzra defeated Sanga eons ago, one of her most beloved creations, a titanic creature called the Granite Ox. Oh my God, I was able to pronounce that. What's wrong with you guys? All right, laid itself across her fallen body to contain her leaking energy until she could recover. Critically wounded, but not quite dead. I'm not quite dead yet. You can take me off this pile. Senga slipped into a coma-like slumber centuries past before the island where Senga fell was discovered and settled by mortals. Enough time for the earth to cover the forms of both the slumbering Titan and the Granite Ox. Oh, so they're going to be the island? I guess so. Chris Lenrod says, looks fun, but Pathfinder 2nd Edition is so crunchy. The GM, they bought it after the open game license thingy, but the stuff is well made. I say it all the time. If you have any interest in doing a virtual tabletop, Foundry and Paizo have teamed up. The Pathfinder port over to Foundry is excellent. It handles all the heavy lifting. Really, really does. Because I've seen, well, I shouldn't say I've seen it. I have the beginner box for Pathfinder. And man, it's so well done. All right, so just taking a peek through here. Well, that chapter wasn't super long. Then some options if you want to continue the campaign. We usually see this. in the final chapter of an adventure path. And then, actually, wow, we got a few pages devoted to that. Well, I guess probably would. I would take a guess your players are probably going to be fairly attached to their demigod player characters. All right, then we get a bit of a gazetteer for Cardaji Bay. But as you can see, there's your Phoenician kind of Greek influence there. It's like get some information about deities. Then we get into our adventure toolbox. So this is, it looks like that's the sword that they needed to find. So we've got different items. We have some information if you want to worship one of the deities that's discussed. And then we're going to get into a bit of a bestiary. We've got the Leviathan Louse. It's pretty wild looking. And that is I believe this is the new deity that they were just showing. And there's our big bad. Oh no, that is not our big bad. So we must have had the big bad's info earlier, which is weird because they normally don't do that with Paizo. They usually wait to give you the stat blocks for the big bad at the end of the final chapter. But I guess they didn't do that this time. Sweet. Or maybe the big bad, they really don't, tackle in combat or anything like that. All right. So that is a peek at Myth Speaker Titanbane. It is the finale to the Myth Speaker Adventure Path, and it is the finale to the next to last adventure path from Paizo Inc. All right. So we are going to jump back into the Paizo preview in just a few moments. I do want to mention, even though we're not talking about drive-through RPG tonight, there are a multitude of ways you can support the Gaming Gang if you enjoy the outlet. One of them is by using our drive-through RPG and other One Bookshelf site affiliate links. Now, keep in mind, on thegaminggang.com, they're all banner ads for drive-through RPG, but you can always click on that and then go to another One Bookshelf site, and it'll keep the affiliate code as long as you go through the drive-through RPG website when you click on the other site. So that is one way to go about doing that. You can also make a one-time donation by way of PayPal. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. I really do wish this soda was colder. It is not very cold. It's all right. It's all right. I didn't think of grabbing any ice before I ran down here. Yes. And you can also become a monthly member of our Patreon. And on our live shows, I always like to give a shout out to our Patreon members. So at our $5 teal, at our $5 tier, we have Gustavo Cavalho, Jason Lawman, Kubal, Kevin R. Smith, Sean O'Donnell, and Talzek. Our $10 members, Matt W., Dan Webb, Game Cat, Pete Strakolich, RPG Munch, Tessie Trekkie, and Tier 2 DM. And at the $25 tier, we have Agile Monk and the Madman. So a big tip of the caps to all of you out there who are monthly members of our Patreon or use our drive-through RPG affiliate links, or on occasion make one-time donations by way of PayPal. It is much appreciated. So we're going to be diving on into the Deluxe Adventure for Pathfinder, Dawn of the Frogs, in just a few moments. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission. I forgot to hit that damn thing again. What is it? What is it with that lower third? But about half the time I forget to hit it. I don't know. Anyway, here's the brief intermission.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat.
But now you can have all the power and excitement of Nintendo right in the palm of your hand. Introducing Game Boy. It's portable, it's in stereo, and its games are interchangeable. Plus, Game Boy comes with the outrageous new game, Tetris. And for head-to-head competition, use the revolutionary video link and blow your opponent away. Game Boy, only from Nintendo. Now you're playing with power, portable power.
I can get you Wilkins coffee for a price.
I wouldn't touch it.
There's no future in an attitude like that.
In a dark and distant age, a lone warrior with mystical powers.
Master of the beast.
And the creatures he commands. Rue, his strength. Kodo and Podo, his thieves. And Shirak, his eyes. They will challenge the forces of a brutal tyrant.
Did you actually believe that you and your flock of peasants could overthrow my kingdom?
But the battle for the fate of their world,
With the threat of such a weapon, I could rule unopposed.
will lead them to another.
The ultimate power awaits you, my lord. The dimensional portal, the doorway to your ultimate triumph.
To the most barbaric land that time has ever known.
This is Los Angeles. Most awesome place in the universe.
Yo, Darth Vader, what is this, some kind of movie set?
You gotta get yourself some fresh thread. Rock and roll, baby. Whoa!
How come a clean-cut jungle boy like you is hanging out with a creep like this?
This geek is really trying to get the bomb.
The world is mine! You must pass me first.
Singer returns in Beastmaster 2 through the portal of time.
So Beastmaster ends up going the same direction as Highlander. So for the sequel, they take everything that was a big deal about the original movie and just throw it away. And we're like, yeah, all right, let's move this someplace else. Okay. All righty. I do recall telling you folks, I have never seen Beastmaster or Beastmaster 2, or wasn't there a Beastmaster 3? I could have swore I've read somewhere that they're rebooting it. How about that? Ours Fabulous says, nobody makes stuff like this anymore. That might be a good thing. There might be a healthful benefit to that. I don't know. I remember being in high school and we would go for like a couple of bucks. We'd go to these like second run, third run theaters. Sometimes you'd go and it was like 3 movies on the bill, and they were all crap. But I mean, gave us something to do on a Saturday afternoon. So there you go. Kevin R. Smith has joined us. Kevin R. Smith thinks he has not missed any of the Paizo preview, but he has. He's missed the first half because we did not do tabletop gaming news tonight. Because I figured, yep, we're easily going to have an hour or more of show just with the Paizo preview. So just like last month, no news on tonight's show. But you have not missed the 2 big releases. We're going to tackle the first one right here. It is the Pathfinder Deluxe Adventure. It is Game Night Dawn of the Frogs, which has an MSRP of $39.99. You can get the PDF for $19.99. I see Stray Kismet says, Beastmaster 3, he stays the hell home. Kevin R. Smith says, I think they're rebooting something else. Deathstalker. Yes, you are correct. I saw that. I forget where I saw it. I did not read the article, but I was like, really? Okay. All right. Okay, so let's get the shrink wrap off here. Now, if you recall, when we took a peek at Murder in Metal City or Starfinder 2nd Edition, I pointed out it is not a beginner box. It's not a starter set. Neither is this. I think there's also misconception out there. This is like a starter set for Pathfinder. It is not, to my knowledge. It is simply a deluxe adventure. It's got pawns and such. Something sinister in the swamp. The small town of Bog Bottom has a problem. Villagers have been disappearing. They were last seen in the vicinity of a creepy, ruined mill out in the swampy expanse of the surrounding wilds of Dunmire. And now it falls to a group of 4 new adventurers to track down what's behind these vanishings. Isn't that Highlander 4, The Vanishing? That truth will expose an even larger threat to Bog Bottom than the locals expected. So it's telling us the contents of the box. So you want to keep in mind, this is an adventure. So if you're a player and your game master has ordered this, because these are hitting stores today, maybe they just went and picked it up, there's going to be spoilers, even though I know nothing about this. There's going to be spoilers as we open this up and we take a peek at it. So you've been warned. All right. So first off, oh, look at this. We get a set of dice. So now I'm starting to think, is this a starter set? Because we're getting dice. We did not get dice with Murder in Metal City. I don't know. This is throwing people off. All right, so the book itself is all dinged up from the dice. Seriously, I don't know if you can catch it. It's all along here. So that is the adventure. We'll take a look at the adventure last. Here's our pre-gens. Looks as if our pre-gens are some of our heroes that we have throughout the history of Pathfinder. So we have Ezrin the Wizard. I'm telling you, this is looking more and more like a starter set. I don't know. I don't know. Because here it's even got information about playing Pathfinder. Now, this is supposed to be an introductory adventure to Pathfinder. Like I said, I just don't think it's supposed to be a starter set. Because Murder in Metal City was the same kind of thing. It was an introduction to Starfinder. So the assumption was you had not, as a game master, run Starfinder before, but it was not a starter set, so you didn't have any rules. Here's Kyra the Human Cleric. I always like this character design. The info there. Mirasil, the Elf Rogue. I think that's how the name is pronounced. I like how it says, oh, yeah, you'll play this character if you want to do these kind of things. So there we go. So it's showing us the different dice. See, this is kind of a holdover from the beginner box, but in the beginner box, the dice actually matched these colors, or maybe they were different colors. I don't recall off the top of my head. Kevin R. Smith says, if it's not a starter set, it's sure targeted toward inexperienced players and GMs. That it is supposed to be. And then we have Valeros, the human fighter. So you want to play Valeros if you want to stand in front to take on the monsters up close, use any weapon or suit of armor with practice skill, react to enemy actions, and block their attacks. There you go. Nice. Paper stock's pretty thin. I mean, I shouldn't say pretty. It's really thin. But that's okay. I mean, they're just pre-generated characters. All right. So we've got, well, looks like we've got a few of these. So we've got some adventure maps, also pretty thin paper stock, but this does have a bit of a treatment on it. But no, these are not like the material of flip mats. Just taking a look here. Gotta say, those are pretty nice. But we've got, let's see, 2, 3. Okay, then I just saw something that was kind of weird. And we'll talk about that in a sec. Let's take a look at this one here. Looks like this is the edge of a lake or something. Maybe a river. This is the berry patch. Yummy. This is the mushroom stump. We also have Soggy Cemetery and the Swamp Predator. Speaking of Predator, I got to say that new Predator movie looks kind of interesting. Could be kind of cool. This is the Damn Fortress. Damn you, Fortress. No, there's no N in damn on this. There we go. And then we've got tunnels. There we go. All right. Okay. Here, we're going to take a peek at the thing that I was like, wait a second, what? So we have pawns. Okay, the reason why I say, okay, this is kind of weird, is because in Murder in Metal City, we did not get pawns. We got tokens, which I thought, oh, weird. Are they getting away from pawns? Kind of odd, because I like the pawns, even though the way the pawns are made, a lot of times some of the artwork falls outside of it, so it gets cut off, which is kind of a bummer. But like, for an example, this hunting spider, most of one of the legs is going to be lost punching this out. There are no plastic stands, though, which is usually what we would see like in the beginner box. So we do have these little paper. Yeah, I've got plastic stands. I would use plastic stands with these. They'll hold up far longer. So we're getting an idea of some of the creatures that the player characters are going to be taking on. I don't see any NPCs. Okay, that's all right. Okay. We have 5 copies of the rules reference. But this is not enough for you to run an adventure with. This is just to kind of give the players and I guess the game master, because there are 5 and I could have swore we have only 4 pre-gen characters. I mean, which is fine. But we've got a rules reference here: combat, structure, initiative, taking a turn, moving, attacking, damage, death and dying, healing, as well as conditions. I know, this is looking more and more like a starter set. And then we have an ad for the player core, as well as the Pathfinder Society. I don't know. We're going to find out when we look in the book. I would think that would be super bizarre, though, for the Starfinder Deluxe Adventure, and that's what they call it, the Deluxe Adventure, is not a starter set. Nowhere near being a starter set. I mean, it is an introductory adventure, but it's not a starter set. And then have Pathfinder release a Deluxe Adventure, or I should say a Paizo Inc. release a Pathfinder Deluxe Adventure, which is, it's like, I guess we get green dice because this is supposed to take place in a swamp. Kevin R. Smith says, Through the Damned Fortress would be a cool adventure location. Kevin R. Smith also says, they're shocked they didn't sell standalone beginner box dice sets, so every beginner could have one. Yes, you only got one in the starter set. And Stray Kismet saying, well, just put plexi over the maps. You know, the thing is, a lot of role players don't have something like that. A lot of role-playing GMs don't tend to have like plexiglass or like plastic to lay over. Like if you're a war gamer, you tend to do that because you have a lot of games that have just a paper map where you lay it on top. But yes, I could certainly see that. And you wouldn't need like a huge piece of plastic. All right. So we got our credits here. So once again, a lot of folks work very hard to bring this to life. This is written by Jason Bullman. All right. So getting started. Greetings, Game Master, and welcome to Pathfinder Game Night, Dawn of the Frogs. This book will serve as your guide, helping you to tell an engaging and exciting tale of adventure with your friends. Throughout this experience, you serve as a storyteller and game referee, interpreting the rules of the game in the way that helps your group tell a fun tale. This might sound like a big responsibility, but don't worry. This book will guide you through every step as it comes up in the adventure. So don't be afraid to just jump in. We'll teach you as you go along. Then this is a starter set. Like, I don't mind it being a starter set. I'm glad it is. But that throws everybody off because no wonder, people were like, oh, yeah, Murder in Metal City. It's a beginner box for Starfinder 2nd Edition. It's like, no, it's not. I guess this is. Because it's going into what is a role-playing game? Actions, single actions, 2 actions, 3 actions. Talking about creatures. Yep, making checks. It's walking you through all this. So I'll be damned. Hang on. Does the back of the box... No. At no point does this actually say this is an introduction to Pathfinder. It says a handy rules reference sheet for the basics of Pathfinder play. It says a 36-page adventure booklet containing 3 linked adventures, each suitable for a night of play. This is weird. Because I would certainly market this as a starter set. I don't know. Kevin R. Smith says they heard of this game night thing at some point. Might be aimed at getting board gamers to do an RPG one shot, one week. Might be why it's written more as a starter set. That is possible. As we've talked about, the new starter set for Dungeons and Dragons, which is coming out, I think it's this month, which we're supposed to be getting a copy of to review. So we'll find out. We'll see. Is kind of like being promoted, being marketed by Wizards of the Coast as a board game, but it's not. It is a role-playing starter set. But even looking at the components that are in the box, they look like the way they're presented in some of the marketing shots make it look like, oh, it's board game components. It's kind of weird. Okay. So let's take a look at the first adventure. Mystery at the Old Mill. In this adventure, the heroes explore an old mill. Okay, well, that's the title. In a swamp called Dunmire, a notorious region not far from the small village of Bog Bottom. The character sheets explain to each player what their character is doing here in the swamp and how they know each other. Give the players a chance to introduce their characters to each other, then read the following to them. A little blurb about Galarian, and you don't necessarily have to put this adventure in Galarian. Stray Kismet says, 12 pages of mission. That's almost like the old D&D booklets, the old modules. Kevin R. Smith says, yeah, except TSR packed a crap ton into those 12 pages because of small font and because there wasn't a lot of fluff. You're sort of like, okay, this is what's in this room. There's no, hey, 100 years ago, this bedroom was used by so-and-so to sleep and do these things. No, it was just, here's a bedroom. Here's what's in it. Daryl Errett's with us. Says, hey, I thought you said Dungmire. No, it's Dunmire. So here we've got a breakdown of different stuff, kind of like we saw on that reference sheet. And then we've got different encounters. So, of course, I can pretty much guarantee that these 3 adventures are going to be completely on rails, which is fine. That tends to be the case nowadays with a lot of modern role-playing games. Okay, so this is the second adventure, Swamp Stalkers. Welcome to the second adventure in Pathfinder Game Night, Dawn of the Frogs. This adventure builds heavily off the rules and story of the first adventure, Mystery at the Old Mill. So everyone should have played that adventure first. If it's been a bit, I was like looking for like been a while. I'm like, where's while at? Did I just lose my place? No, it says, if it's been a bit since your group played, you may wish to give a brief recap of the events of the first session so that everyone remembers what transpired. Okay. Looking to see where are we going to talk about what the adventure is about. The PCs must now recover key ingredients, need to brew an antidote to the boggart poison that has wiped the memories of two townsfolk. When the players are ready to begin, read the following. So far, it looks like the read aloud is relatively short, which to me is a big deal. Because sometimes I'll see some adventures, and I'm not necessarily saying it's Paizo Inc., but I'll see some where it's like, okay, so it's all, okay, this is here's your read aloud. Oh, also here's the read aloud too. And it's like, are you just asking your players to bust their phones out and start surfing the web? So you see, these are some of those maps we already took a peek at. Yes, Elliot would love this adventure because he's so fond of spiders. So our third adventure is a dirge for Dunmire. As the final adventure begins, the swamp waters begin to rise, threatening the town of Bog Bottom. The PCs are sent to the Boggart's Dam Fortress to put an end to their evil scheme before Bog Bottom is entirely flooded. When the players are ready, read the following. Oh, these look to be about the longest of the read-alouds that we have seen. Yeah, I swear this is a starter set, gang. That's what this is. Like I said, I'm totally cool with that. I just find it weird that the Deluxe Starfinder Second Edition adventure is not, but the Deluxe Pathfinder adventure is. Although the Pathfinder adventure does have game night in its title. That's kind of cool. Then there's an ad for the beginner box. All right. So that is a peek at the adventure. And then as we would normally see in Adventure Path chapters, we've got the maps on the interiors of the covers. So also, let's not forget those dice that damaged the book, but cool. Well, somebody in the gang is getting a new set of polyhedrals. Although, tell you what, I always look for sets that have 3 or 4 6-sided dice. Because in my opinion, any set of dice that does not include 3 or 4 D6s, kind of incomplete. Stray Kismet says Madman invented spiders, but only the talking kind. All right, we're going to wrap up with the big release, at least in my opinion, from Paizo Inc. this month. It is the GM Core for Starfinder Second Edition. So, Pathfinder Game Nights, the third part of the Pathfinder Adventure Path, Myth Speaker. Sammy's reviewing those. I am going to review the GM Core for Starfinder Second Edition. Let's take a peek. All right, here are our credits. So once again, take a moment for these fine folks to get credit. So we're going to have running the game, building games, the Pact Worlds, subsystems, anachronistic adventures, and a glossary. Now, I thought this is supposed to include Starship Combat, I'm not positive. Daryl Arrett says they prefer D6s with pips. So do I. Weirdly enough, to me, it just feels weird. Okay, so as odd as this sounds, dice that have numbers on them, which are like 6-sided dice, no other die. No, like not the D4, not D8, D20, or anything like that. Only 6-sided dice that have numbers, to me, it's like it's lazy. I don't know why. It's just how I feel. It's like, what, like you can't count the pips up? I know, it's weird. All right. So we've got our introduction here. It looks like they're recycling some artwork from other Starfinder 2nd Edition releases. I believe October brings the Alien Archive. Straight Kismet says they have Braille D6s. Oh, that's cool. I know they've got, oh gosh, now I can't remember the company. I think they're like a nonprofit that they make Braille game dice. I thought that was kind of cool. All right. So let's see. It's kind of giving us information about character creation, running a session. During a session, you're in charge of keeping the game's action moving, managing the different modes of play, fielding questions, and making rules decisions. You'll also want to keep a rough eye on the time so you can end when most convenient for the group. Yes, hopefully on a cliffhanger so everybody wants to come back next time. You're the interface between the rules and the imagined universe you and the other players share. They will ask you questions and they'll act based on their own assumptions. It's up to you to establish what's true in the game, but you don't do this unilaterally. You're informed by the setting's backstory, your preparations, and the suggestions and assumptions the other players bring to the table. Keep in mind that until you announce something, your own plans are subject to change. So special considerations, consistency, and fairness. Talking about narrative collaboration, running encounters. Talking about stakes, time scale, actions, and reactions. So it's kind of telling us how you see the stat block, well, the encounter block broken down. Talking about initiative. It looks like it's giving you some options on initiative. How to run the encounter. This combat. Looks like it. Yep. Not a ton of information about combat in that. I mean, a lot of it's tackled in the player core. Captain Finity, Time Travel Police, is with us. Now it's talking about running exploration. Fleshing it out. Different activities. Providing environmental details. Like things they see, feel, smell. Here we got downtime. We're getting into difficulty classes, which can be tricky. This is one of the things I think trips up new game masters. I think they tend to set their, and this is not just Pathfinder and Starfinder, this is any game where the game master has to set like a difficulty level, difficulty challenge, whatever. I think they tend to shoot low. Sometimes you need to quickly set a difficulty class. The easiest method is to select a simple DC from the Simple DCs table on page 53 by estimating which proficiency rank best matches the task. That rank is usually not required to succeed at the task. If it's something pretty much anyone would have a decent chance at, use the untrained DC. If it would require a degree of training, use the DC listed for trained, expert, master, or legendary proficiency as appropriate to the complexity of the task. For example, say a player character was trying to uncover the facts behind an infosphere rumor. You determine this requires a check to recall knowledge and that only someone with master proficiency in infosphere lore would know the information. So you'd set the difficulty class at 30, which is simple for a master. Well, talking about specific actions, getting into rewards, talking about experience points. Oh, for some reason, my nose started running. Sean Dahl says Pathfinder 2nd Edition DCs are very easy. For an experienced game master like Sean, yes. So campaigns. So we're going to get into information about building campaigns, adventure design. I'm sure we're going to have info about balancing your encounters and your combat in that. Counter locations. Oh, we get into the variant rules. Automatic bonus progression. Expanded space rules. Afflictions. So we've got different curses. Environments. So each of these sections is only a few pages in length. And as I say that, of course, the environment page is a little bit longer. So here we've got hazards, detecting a hazard, triggering a hazard, disabling a hazard. Then we get some new hazards. I have to say, this looks pretty in-depth as far as getting game masters to homebrew stuff. You know, creating their own adventures. Now we're getting into world building. Building settlements. And I think we get into the Pact Worlds. Yep, the Pact Worlds. So about the first 140 pages or so looks to be all kind of advice and tips for the game master here. Now it looks like we're going to get into more of a gazetteer with the various different worlds. In the player core, the worlds just got real short sections of information. So as an example, we've got Epsilon Station, which is where Galarian used to be. Or we get a couple of pages devoted to each. Yeah, that's what it looks like. The Diaspora is a geographically diverse asteroid belt scattered over the vast space between the Dari worldship and the planet Eox. The Diaspora contains countless asteroids, starship wrecks, and space anomalies, and has little in the way of government or law enforcement. It's a haven for scavengers, explorers, miners, pirates, criminals in hiding, and unethical scientists. A golden stream of solar energy called the River Between runs through it in an endless loop, providing energy to crush worlds and acting as a space highway for Sarcerian travelers. It's Shona Down says, if Jeff wants to call me experienced, I'll take it. Well, I would say if you have been running a role-playing game for more than a year, to me, that makes you experienced. As long as, you know, your group gets together fairly regularly. Hey, speaking of groups, on the Discord server, which is absolutely free to join, I have added a looking for group channel. It is currently in the members only section. So you do have to be a Patreon member in order to check that out. But I even posted myself in there. I was like, yeah, because, for one, I'd love to be a player once in a while, But I'm also open to game mastering. So it would probably be Monday or Fridays. Even though, Saturday and Sundays I'm available too. But here's the Vast. The Vast is everything in the galaxy beyond the drift beacon dense region of near space. One can easily assume that means the Vast is physically furthest from the packed worlds. But the truth is that a system in the Vast could be relatively close, but lack any nearby drift beacons to make the connection. Because of its relative distance from Absalom Station, the Vast takes weeks or months to travel to, while only requiring a handful of days at most to return from. It's the edge of exploration in the cosmos, where the most yet-to-be-discovered dangers and wonders lurk. Shrek Kismet says they got the tiny D6 bundle. You never said how deep that can go. Holy cow. Yeah, there's a lot in that. Like I said, sadly, I've not had an opportunity to really dig into any of the Gallant Knight games, role-playing games, outside of reviewing the PDF for, I want to say it was the second edition of Tiny Dungeon. I don't think it was the first edition. And I thought it was really cool. That was back when I would actually review PDFs, which not anymore. Because the reality is, if I reviewed PDFs, I would never have an opportunity to shoot video. And I hate creating videos only using artwork. So sometimes I'll have somebody wants me to do a custom Kickstarter video and all they've got is artwork. I'm like, really? You don't have an alpha build or anything like that? Nope. All right. So there we have, looks like we're getting into some of the planes. Then we get into our species. I was curious if maybe we were going to get something new. Don't think so. Oh, hold on. We had 8 to start with. I think no, Veska's in there. I think that's new. That is new. Dragonkind, I don't remember from that. Ars Fabulous says, artwork is great so far. We did get with the Murder in Middle City, which is not a starter set. It is a deluxe adventure, but it's not a starter set. We had a new plant-based species that looked kind of cool. Okay, getting into a little religion here. Victory points. Victory points allow you to track the PC's progress using a subsystem to go beyond the results of a single check. Victory points have almost unlimited potential as a campaign tool. You could track and resolve them within a single encounter, or you could collect them over the course of an entire campaign to determine the outcome of a particular story element. Paizo Inc. has done this before. I don't think they've called them victory points. A lot of times with the adventure paths, it'll be like investigation points. Oh, so if the player characters do this or that, they gain investigation points. And then at the end of their research or investigation, you add up all the points to see how much info they got. So Kevin R. Smith says they don't see any members only stuff, even though they're on the Patreon. If you use the same name, if it's Kevin R. Smith, I will go in there and fix that for you. Usually when somebody signs up to the Patreon, I will send an email telling them about the Discord and to email me their Discord username, because a lot of times their username is not their real name. So, and I don't know who is who in the Discord. All right, so we're going to get into some rules about chases, infiltration, hacking. I think we had vehicles too. Just passed that by. Cinematic starship scenes. Okay. Cinematic starship scenes occur in encounter mode and require the PCs to work together on board a starship by taking on different roles. Starship scenes often involve combat between two or more starships, but they might present a unique challenge like a high-speed chase against enemy starships or a really slow-paced and slow-speed chase like in Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker. I was like, really? Seriously? Was that the last one or was that the second to last? Where Laura Dern is the commander of the ship? I was like, oh my gosh. Come on. Falling asleep here. So Kevin R. Smith says, yes, their Discord username is different. Kevin, just shoot me an email and I'll fix that. I'll take care of that. Cinematic starship scenes are similar to a complex hazard, but are presented as a new type of stat block that also includes details for the PC starship, threats, including enemy starships, dangerous creatures, hazardous terrain, gravity wells, and more, and victory conditions for the encounter. I don't know. I think there are going to be game masters out there going to be a little upset that we are not getting like starship combat rules. Because I know I've seen some complaints. There have been some comments on my review of the Player Core. Same thing. They're like, what? No starship combat? What the hell's going on here? Oh, here's the vehicles. And a few examples of some. Starfinder is a science fantasy setting, a galaxy full of magic and tech set in the far future. The Starfinder and Pathfinder games are fully compatible. The rules for one game work with the other. This chapter can help GMs choose which elements fit best in their games, how to adjust them if necessary, and how to incorporate two different timelines in the same adventure. So we got time-shifted adventures. I've had people ask if I would recommend Starfinder for more like hard science fiction. I gotta be honest, I probably wouldn't. There's just so much that's baked into this cake where it's science fantasy. So, Chris Leonard asked, between Starfinder 2nd Edition versus Pathfinder, which is more unique? Well, the reality is Pathfinder 2nd Edition is a fantasy role-playing game that plays with the tropes of fantasy role-playing games. Goblins, although I like the Paizo goblins. I like them the best out of any role-playing game. I like how they're kind of crazy. I know they've kind of changed the goblins a little bit when we got away from the whole alignment thing. But I've got to say that between the two, Starfinder's more unique because Starfinder's got its own take. Like I said, it's science fantasy. It's space fantasy. So it's got a lot of wiggle room to do whatever the hell it wants. Whereas Pathfinder's, built really originally on Dungeons & Dragons 3.5. In fact, a lot of people called the first edition of Pathfinder essentially Dungeons & Dragons 3.75. Starfinder, it's its own beast. Ars Fabula points out they felt Starfinder races are unique. Yeah, that's something else that you want to keep in mind too. As far as the GM core, this carries an MSRP of $69.99. If you want to grab just the PDF, you can get it for $19.99. Once again, Paizo Inc. with like core books give you a pretty good deal as far as those PDFs. All right. And once again, all of these items have arrived in stores. So you can run out. Well, it's probably too late now. Well, it depends. If you're out there on the West Coast, you got plenty of time to get over to the game store. Get any of this. Hey, you can pick up the Pathfinder Game Night, Dawn of the Frogs, and learn how to play Pathfinder because it's a starter set. It's like, and here I'm sitting there thinking, no, it's not a starter set because Murder in Metal City was not a starter set. It's like, okay. Like I said, I have absolutely no beef with it being kind of a starter set. I like to see that. It's just so weird that they've just recently released the second edition of Starfinder. They come out with this boxed adventure. People are thinking, oh, that's got to be the starter set. And it's like, nope. It's like, womp, womp, womp. It's like, yeah, Jeff's an idiot. Like I said, Sammy's going to be reviewing that. I will be reviewing this. Ars Fabulous says, it's 8:30 here. I can be at Dragon's Lair in 10 minutes. Kevin R. Smith points out, yes, Galarian's a pretty generic D&D style fantasy setting. Okay, I wouldn't necessarily say generic, but it is. It pretty much sticks with a lot of the tropes and memes from fantasy role-playing games. So as Kevin R. Smith says, even having a crashed spaceship in fantasy land is an old D&D trope. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. But Starfinder's setting is totally unique, yes. And I also think it's kind of funny that Galarian's gone and nobody knows what happened to it. And in its place is Absalom Station, which is this massive space station that the player characters can kind of use as a base of operations when they start off. It's like, okay, well, that's kind of unique, right? It's like, oh, okay, so you would have thought that, the easy way out would just be, oh, well, Galarian still exists. And then that way you could have like, oh, so, I have crossover adventures between the Pathfinder characters and Starfinder characters with Pathfinder. Well, now the planet's gone. So no. Ars Fabulous says it's D&D's reheated nachos. I don't know if I would say that. I got to be honest, and this is simply my opinion, has nothing to do with me wearing this shirt. I'm wearing this shirt for last week's sponsor, Misty Mountain Gaming, and their new line of officially licensed Paizo Inc. Starfinder and Pathfinder apparel and accessories, dice, and so forth. But I think over the past few years that Paizo has pushed the envelope more as far as their fantasy setting than Wizards of the Coast has. That's just my impression. because, the reality is, if you look at D&D, yes, you've got various different locales, you got different regions, but the majority of stuff normally happens, well, I don't know what their game plan is for new Dungeons and Dragons, but with 5th edition, they really focused on the Sword Coast. So they focused on Forgotten Realms. And Forgotten Realms is its own sort of kind of traditional high epic fantasy where there's magic everywhere. Oh, hey, I opened up this box and shit, there's a magic wand and a magic robe and magical gloves. It's like magic everywhere. But it does kind of just play within its own boundaries. And it doesn't tend to expand from there. And then when they do, they just reheat stuff that's other settings from TSR. So, Eberron. Eberron was TSR, right? I remember I left Dungeons and Dragons when it was still advanced D&D, and they hadn't moved on to the Jeff Easley art yet. So I was done playing D&D in about 1982, because I really don't remember us even going to like a game day. Like I've talked about the game days that they had at this community center in Oak Park, Illinois. We went to a couple of, and then they had, I think it was like every other Saturday, they had a game group that got together, and we went a few times for that. But even then, we didn't play D&D. I know we played in a D&D tournament once at this game week. It was like a weekend they would do it. I think they kicked it off Friday night and it ran through Sunday. And Elliot didn't live too far away, so we all stayed at Elliot's house. So it was like a, bus ride, couple of buses, and bam, we were there probably in about 45 minutes. But so I can't really, tell you. Like Dark Sun, I know a lot of people really dig Dark Sun. I know very little about Dark Sun. I know the Brahm artwork, but that's about it. And I know it was a bit more mature in a lot of ways. But like Eberron, outside of the 5e stuff that got released, I know nothing about Eberron. I know outside of the 5e stuff, nothing about Ravenloft. So, but from what I can tell, I can't think of anything that Wizards of the Coast has done that is really its own thing. Even the new Faerun book coming out, well, books, there's 2 of them, are Forgotten Realms. And there was the Greyhawk talk, which I guess is going to be their organized play. I don't know if that's true or not. That's TSR. So I don't know. At least to me, Paizo seems to, now, while they're still playing in the same, sandbox as Dungeons and Dragons, they just seem to be willing to push their envelope. And I'll give you a few examples. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that their adventures are like fantastic. There's some that I've liked. There's some that I'm kind of like, yeah, it's sort of, yeah, it's the usual. But you figure they've done adventure paths where you had more of a steampunk kind of gear punk vibe to it. That's the Outlaws of Alkenstar, if I remember correctly, is the title of that. You had the Abomination Vault, which is now available for Dungeons and Dragons On D&D Beyond, it's digital. It's they're not going to publish the Abomination Vaults. That was more horror. That was kind of a horror dungeon delve. I don't necessarily want to say mega dungeon, but close. So you had that. You had the Asian theme. You've had Asian themes a couple of times, and they've been different Asian themes. So we've had like Pacific Islander stuff. We've had Chinese stuff. We've had things that are more like kind of built off of Japanese legend and mythology. I don't see Wizards of the Coast doing that. So yeah, I think there's quite a bit more creativity going on with Paizo Inc. than with Wizards of the Coast. Now, the reality is, sure, I wish Wizards of the Coast would try to branch out more and say, hey, you know what? Let's try more, more of a fairy tale. Because if you recall, out of 5e, my favorite adventure is it's the Witchlight. I always forget the name of it now. It's my favorite adventure that I can't remember the damn name to. Something Beyond the Witchlight. Geez, you would think I only look at hundreds of games. Why can't I just remember that one? But that was different. That was a bit different. It went in a direction that, it wasn't really a setting. There you go. Thank you, Kevin R. Smith. Wild Beyond the Witchlight. And a lot of people hated that. They hated that adventure because it wasn't just the, hack and slash that just about every encounter in the entire adventure, outside of a handful, could be resolved without having to resort to combat and stuff like that, which I thought was great. I liked how it had a bit of it really had a bit of a fairy tale vibe to it. It wasn't just, it's your, high magic, epic fantasy. It was a bit different. But you don't see Wizards of the Coast do that very often. And I don't think we're going to see it with new D&D either. At least not from what I had an opportunity to take a peek at during that press event before Gen Con. Not that I'm saying it stuff looked bad. It was just, it's sort of like, okay, seems to be kind of a little bit of a rehash. We'll find out. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Keith McGrath is joining us this evening. So, what about Exodus? It's a video game with some role-playing game books attached to it. I'm not familiar with that at all. You got to realize there is tons of role-playing games out there, many which are just digital. So, which isn't bad or anything like that. I mean, I get people contact me all the time. They're like, "Oh, Jeff, could you review this?" Well, are you going to come out with a print edition? No. Well, I mean, I'm happy to share a news piece about it, and then I will. But I mean, I didn't even get around to share a news piece for the last Kickstarter that Two Little Mice did, which just ended. I think it just ended last week. And is it Munda Mori? You Must Die? Isn't that Latin? I think it's Latin for You Must Die, which looked pretty cool. It's like, and it's supposed to be during the Great Pestilence, because they didn't call it the Black Death back at the time. They called it the Great Pestilence. And what the hell? There was another phrase that they used all the time. But you're, I guess, carrying the bubonic plague. But it's a fantasy role-playing game. And it's like, okay. So there's always stuff out there that is just really pushing the envelope or tearing the envelope open. It's just not on everybody's radar. If you think about it, Daggerheart, it's different from what I know of it. I haven't seen it. Sammy reviewed it. Liked it fairly well. But it is kind of different. It's got a different approach. So you got that. You've got the Draw Steel, which I think is coming out. I think the physical books are October. I think it's October. More of your relatively traditional Dungeons and Dragons sort of fantasy, but as has been pointed out, I believe it was Kevin R. Smith who pointed this out last week, it is more focused on combat and tactics because I guess Matt Colville is a big fan of 4E, which kind of puts him in minority as far as a lot of gamers are. But so, there's just different stuff out there. And I do my best to try to bring you news of things that are a little unique, a little off the wall. Now, of course, granted, I'm always sharing news from Cubicle 7 and Free League Publishing, Troll Lord Games. Troll Lord Games is a small publisher. All of them are considered small publishers. So the reality is anything that's not Wizards of the Coast and Paizo Inc. is actually small publisher September. I mean, that's the reality of it. Keith McGrath says they'll play all games or any games if they're asked to. Personally, they run OSR. I tend to like to run stuff with an OSR mindset. Maybe not necessarily specifically like original Dungeons and Dragons or, like Holmes, D&D, things like that. He says they respect I cover all games. I try to share the love. I really do. I really try to share the love. So that's why one day you'll see me do a review of the latest core book from Paizo Inc. And then all of a sudden you see a first look video for Print Weaver from Exalted Funeral and an unboxing of the Cayman 3s from Tiny Battle Publishing. Where else are you going to see a peek inside this? Now, am I saying I'm the only guy who's got a video out there for it? No, I don't know. Maybe I am. I don't know. But I'm also willing to take a peek at this kind of stuff. Got to realize there are content creators out there, and I'm not trying to knock anybody, but it is a fact. There are content creators out there who will only cover certain games or certain publishers because they know those bring the views. That has never been something that drives this outlet or this channel at all. That's why you'll see I will have videos where it's like, wow, that video got 100 views. It's a day old. Okay. Kunfas is with us tonight. I'm getting ready to wrap up. Said they got a Free League email about a new Twilight 2000 campaign supplement. Oh, I wonder if it's going to be the one that they made reference to in their 2 prior box releases, where I guess it's got like a science fiction aspect to it that you can choose not to use. Semper Buffo says, what about Raptor Ruckus on Kickstarter right now? Somebody on Discord just mentioned it I took a peek. I was like, myself personally, I think dinosaurs are kind of an easy. How do I want to phrase this? If you don't want to really, no, that's not how I would say it. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of dinosaur stuff out there. That's like, if somebody would send me an email saying, "Hey Jeff, there's a new pirate role-playing game that's coming out." I feel like, yeah, okay. Oh, new zombie role-playing game coming out. Okay, new Lovecraft role-playing game. I'd be like, now that doesn't mean I'm not going to share news, but it does mean I'm probably not going to go out of my way to try to review it. 15 Insight Games has popped in, said, "What time do you start streaming normally?" They have notifications on, but never get them. Yeah, join the crowd. It's a lot of people who, for some reason, they don't get it. Yep, 7 p.m. Central, as the Bandman points out. Shozama 85 is with us, says they picked up a Powerball ticket. If they win, they'll sponsor the show. How are you going to do that? Because I'm going to win. My mom bought me a Powerball ticket as part of the thank you for taking her to the doctor. It's like, okay. It's like, all right, no problem. Okay, all right. It's like, I normally don't buy lottery tickets. But when it's like $1.4 billion, I guess you got to say, I'm going to take a shot. All right, that is going to be it for this time out. So tomorrow night, I am still up in the air on what we're going to do, because I have a package coming from Cubicle 7 Games. And I'm kind of getting the impression that the post office has lost it, because it's still supposedly sitting in Palatine, Illinois. I do not live in Palatine, Illinois. And it's been there for a couple of days. So I'm kind of curious. So if that shows up, I am going to share a first look at the High Elf Player's Guide for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. If it does not, I might actually bust out a board game unboxing. Or, okay, I'll tell you what. Right now, I'm going to ask in chat, chime in real quick. Do you want to see a role-playing game first look, some role-playing product? Or would you rather see a board game unboxing? And that way, if that package does not show up, that's what I'll go with. All right, quick, in chat. You only got about a minute, because we're approaching the 2-hour. Well, yeah, we're getting close to 2 hours. And people see 2-hour videos and they're like, no, I'm not watching that. Well, I knew Chris Lundgren would say board game. Yan, I'm going to take a guess. Montreal is with us in chat. Welcome. I think this might be a first-time visit. RPG, Chris Lundgren's voting twice. And wrong answer. Shazam 85 is like, whatever. Either one. Hell, Jeff, you can juggle eggs for all I care. All right, so it's going to be an RPG. So it's either going to be the High Elf Player's Guide for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay from Cubicle 7 Games, or some other role-playing game release. Now, I do have some stuff that I am hanging on to until later in the month, because they are horror related. So, yeah, I want to kind of get you ready for October and that. So, yeah, Montreal says yes. Just discovered the YouTube channel and they are from Montreal. Well, welcome. I would say make yourself comfortable, but. So Keith McGrath says the not Warhammer. Hey, I like Wifrip. I think Wifrip is excellent. If you have not checked out Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, just because it's set in that Games Workshop world, and maybe you don't like Games Workshop, don't discount it. It's a cool role-playing game. I am really curious about the old world, which I think we will not see in print until the beginning of next year. But I have heard very good things about it. And it is not the same system as Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. There you go. Chris Lundgren says, Wifrip kicks ass. Yeah, I like it. That is another unique setting, I will say. And it's got a little bit of its tongue in cheek, which I dig also. All right. So that's it for this time out. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell, because it'll not only let you know, well, yeah, maybe YouTube will let you know. We don't know. Possibly, probably not, but you can ring the bell anyway. I think there's supposed to be a setting you can click on to get like all notifications from a channel. I don't know. I haven't dug into it. Anyway, ring the bell, because if you do receive a notification, you'll not only get that for when the Dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central. I'll also let you know when I share other videos, such as today's review of the Cypher Systems starter set from Monty Cook Games. Yes. Of course, this weekend I'll have some more videos for you, some first looks, some reviews, fingers crossed. Don't forget, tomorrow I go to the doctor, to the endocrinologist. See what happens with that. As I pointed out yesterday, it only took 10 months for me to finally get in to see this guy. Better be halfway decent. Anywho, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. If you're watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, tip of the cap to you, because not only were you keeping me company, you were keeping each other company as well. But I know a lot of folks out there, they don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you very much for taking time out to watch any of the over 2,300 videos here on the channel. I know whenever I say that, it's like 2,300 videos, 15 years. Holy moly. I would have swore, but you know. Why I didn't swear at all this episode. So why should I start now? Yes. Everybody enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thanks for hanging out. And as always, I certainly hope each and every one of you gets to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.